Sometimes one single match can tell you everything you need to know about a team's entire season. And for Manchester United, that FA Cup exit against Brighton, wow. It wasn't just a loss, it was a full-on collapse that showed some really deep cracks. So today, we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it happened, and what this all means for the future of the club. This quote from our source material just says it all, doesn't it? A night that should have been for restoring faith became another night of pain. That just perfectly captures the whole feeling at Old Trafford. It's a story of hope, then heartbreak, and honestly, a pretty painful look at where one of the world's biggest clubs is right now. All right, let's get into it. All right, so part one, a night of pain. Let's just start with the feeling right after the final whistle. This wasn't just another loss on the schedule. This was a defeat at home in a huge cup game that just brought all these issues that have been bubbling under the surface right to a boiling point. Okay, so you see the final score here. Manchester United 1, Brighton 2. FA Cup, gone. That tells you what happened, sure, but it doesn't even come close to explaining the how. To really get why fans were so frustrated, we've got to look at how the game actually played out. Which brings us to part two. Hope, then collapse. Because really, this match was like two completely different stories were happening at the exact same time. You had the story the stats were telling you, and then you had the story you were seeing with your own eyes on the pitch. Okay, so check this out. On paper, Manchester United controlled the ball. They had all this possession. But that's not the reality of what was happening. If you watched the game, Brighton just looked so much more dangerous, right? They had a clear plan. Every time they went forward, it felt sharp. It felt like they knew exactly what they were doing, which made them a way bigger threat. And man, talk about an emotional roller coaster. This timeline really lays it out. So just 12 minutes in, boom, Brighton scores after a bad mistake in midfield. And for most of the game, it just stays like that. But then, the 85th minute, Benjamin Šeško gets a late equalizer, and Old Trafford just explodes with hope. For a second, you think, okay, maybe they can pull this off. But then came the 90th minute, the moment it all just completely fell apart. So yeah, let's get into that. Part 3, the 90th minute breaking point. Because what happened right at the end of normal time, it's just so crucial. We're not just talking about what decided the match here. You could argue these few minutes kind of defined the entire mood around the club right now. So picture it. It's the 90th minute, the score is tied, extra time is right around the corner, the tension in the stadium is just through the roof. This is the exact moment you need cool heads, right? You need discipline. And instead of that, they got this. A red card that our source materials says was described as, quote, too foolish to forgive. It was just a reckless, badly timed challenge from Eli Lacey that led to a straight red. To do that at such a critical moment in the game, just unbelievable. And just like that, the whole game changes. Suddenly, Manchester United are down to 10 men. The plan is no longer about finding a winner. Now it's just about survival. They were totally exposed, completely vulnerable. And Brighton was just waiting for that chance. They were absolutely ruthless. They took that advantage immediately, launched this devastating counterattack, and just sliced right through a completely disorganized United defense to score the winner in stoppage time. The final whistle went just a few moments after that, and the sound told the whole story. As our source puts it, the only thing you could hear was the roar from the away fans celebrating, while the rest of Old Trafford just fell into this stunned, dead silence. All right, part 4, post-game fallout. That silence inside the stadium? It didn't last long. It pretty much immediately erupted into a huge storm of anger and analysis online as fans all over the world started to react. It happened almost instantly. Social media was just on fire. You saw all the familiar hashtags. Hashtag Ten Hag out started trending again. Hashtag Glazers out picked up a ton of momentum. It was kind of predictable, but still a really powerful sign of just how frustrated the fans are. But what's interesting is how the fan base was divided on who to blame. You had one camp pointing the finger directly at the manager, at his tactics, at his in-game changes. But then you had another group saying, no, look at the players. They were accused of just not having the character, not being worthy of wearing the shirt. And when you dig a little deeper past all the emotion, the analysis really pointed to 4 big core problems that this game just laid bare. First, a midfield that just got defeated way too easily. Second, a defense that was too slow to react and dropped way too deep. Third, just poor team discipline. The red card says it all. And fourth, a real lack of leadership on the field when things got tough. Okay, so where does that leave us? Part 5, a future in question. Because really, what does all this mean? It's more than just getting knocked out of a cup, right? This loss has kicked off some really big, really difficult questions about the entire direction of the club. And let's be clear, the takeaway from our source material is that this was way more than just a single bad loss. It was a huge danger sign. Think of it like a symptom of a much deeper problem within the club, one that suggests this team is nowhere close to actually competing for the big trophies. For years now, the fans have been hearing about this rebuild project. They've been told to trust the process. But after a collapse like this one, that patience is running seriously thin. That whole idea of a rebuild is now under a microscope, with a lot of people asking, is any real progress even being made? And that kind of leaves us with this final, pretty tough question that the source material raises. Could this word, rebuild, just be an empty promise that never actually comes true? After all the setbacks and all the false starts over the years, is it just a comforting phrase or an empty promise that might never be fulfilled? That's the huge question hanging over Old Trafford right now.